You see David Goggins, Jocko Willink, and a few others as the epitome of discipline, but in reality, they're not as disciplined as you probably believe them to be. I can guarantee you that doing what they do doesn't feel that hard to them. It doesn't feel that difficult. But then you might wonder, how? How does running 12 miles every morning not feel that hard? How does waking up at 4 AM every morning not feel difficult? I'm sure you've had your struggles with staying disciplined before. You've tried to stay consistent with the gym but somehow always end up quitting after 2 weeks. You've tried to diet before but you end up relapsing after a week because your willpower gave up on you. I'm sure you've tried to stay disciplined in many different areas of your life but failed to stick with these things. You wish you could be like the people who go on a diet and seem to stick with it without that much effort. You wish you could go to the gym and just keep going without your motivation fading away after a while. You wish staying disciplined with the good habits didn't feel like a mental war you had to fight 24/7. But see, here's the thing with discipline. The people you look up to as the epitome of discipline, David Goggins, Jocko Willink, maybe someone in your gym, it's not that they have an infinite source of discipline and willpower, but simply the fact that they understand how discipline works and use that knowledge to get to a level that people have a hard time to fathom. If you've struggled with staying disciplined in the past, like most people, it is simply because you misunderstand how it works and go about it in a completely wrong way. I can even guarantee you that you don't even know when you're using discipline and when you're not using it. Now I can't guarantee you that you will reach those same levels of discipline because you're still responsible for taking the right actions, but I can promise you that if you listen, pay attention, and try your best to apply the knowledge given to your own life, you will become a lot more disciplined than you are right now. So this video will answer the following questions. First, how do we even define discipline and how do I know when I'm training it? Second, how does discipline actually function? And third, how can you train yourself into becoming much more disciplined than you are right now? So let me give you some background. As a kid, I was the exact opposite of the word discipline. I lost hours a day on video games, stuffed myself with junk food, scrolled my life away on social media, and I indulged in meaningless instant gratification the majority of the time. My life was a mess. I would describe myself at the time as addicted, undisciplined, dependent, hooked, and a few other terms. From the age of 15, however, I started to slowly turn my life around, but with difficulty. I started going to the gym but struggled with consistency. I tried going to bed on time but had a difficult time staying off my phone. I faced a big video game addiction that took away a lot of my time, but I think the hardest addiction I faced was junk food addiction. The sweet taste of sugar that I couldn't get enough of. The biscuits, snacks, and sweets that controlled me and my thoughts. At the time, I would have never been able to tell myself to quit everything at once and actually stick to it. I didn't have the discipline needed to do so. Now, before we continue with the story and discover how I went from being this completely undisciplined kid to where I am now a few years later, I would like to clarify to you what discipline actually means. Discipline, not to be confused with willpower, is the act of acting and doing something when your emotional state is negative towards that thing. When we need to train in the gym, but our body and mind tells us to stay on the couch, it requires us to use discipline. When we need to complete a homework, but our mind wants us to watch YouTube instead, we need discipline. We need to use discipline when the emotions we feel are negative, not positive, because when emotions are positive, acting isn't difficult and doesn't require discipline. Willpower, on the other hand, is resisting impulses when your mind tells you to go towards something. It's resisting the impulse of consuming junk food when your mind really craves it. It's resisting watching Netflix when you're trying to quit that addiction. Discipline is about doing, usually something good, when your mind and body doesn't feel like doing it. Willpower is about resisting, usually something bad, when your mind and body craves it. Now, for simplicity's sake, in this video we'll treat discipline and willpower as the same thing because they're still kind of interrelated. Understanding the basic definition of discipline is crucial for the rest of this video because most people already misunderstand that basic definition. Most people often believe that they're being disciplined when they begin a fitness journey, when in reality they're not using any discipline since they're feeling motivated for it. When you're starting your journey and you feel motivated and excited, you're not using discipline. When you watch a David Goggins motivational video and you get hyped up for a run, you're not using discipline. Discipline doesn't mean excitement, motivation, drive, being hyped up. Discipline means hard, difficult, unmotivated, feeling miserable, pain, and so on. It's very important to keep this in mind because if you want to improve your discipline levels over time, you first have to understand when you're using it and training it. You're not using it when you feel motivated and excited to do something, but rather when you feel unmotivated and unexcited to do that thing. So let's go back to my story. A few years after my beginnings where I massively struggled with discipline and willpower, I got into a relationship with a girl that didn't last very long, and something we often did together was play video games, Fortnite, Rocket League, and a few others. At that point, I had been able to get much better at this whole discipline thing. I was much more consistent with the gym, dieting wasn't too much of an issue, and my sleep schedule was much more consistent, which meant that the progress I made in the gym was much quicker. However, besides my improved discipline levels, I still struggled with a video game addiction. So when our relationship ended, I made a decision to myself to not touch video games until I graduated high school. This meant that I wouldn't touch a single video game for a total of 6 months. If I gave a challenge like this to my younger self, he would have never been able to complete it. My older self at the time, however, was able to do it. For the next 6 months, I didn't play any computer games or mobile games until my exams were over. To many people, making a decision like this would be very difficult. Simply making a decision and stopping your bad habits completely, that's it, that's all it took. But here's the thing. The reason my younger self would not have been able to complete the challenge compared to my older self who was able to complete it was simply because our discipline level was very different. So now let me explain to you how discipline actually works and how guys like David Goggins or Jocko Willink aren't as disciplined as people believe them to be. So essentially, as a person, you are made of two parts, your mind and your body. Your ability to be disciplined is simply about the relationship between those two things. So your mind is the thing that sets goals, to-do lists, and things to achieve. Your body, on the other hand, is an entity of biology that has to execute on those tasks. The problem here is that there's a conflict between both. Your mind wants to achieve all these things, but the body wants to optimize for the least amount of pain and energy expenditure. Your mind may want to achieve a lean and muscular body, but your body doesn't want to go through the pain and suffering to get that physique. There's a conflict between those two parts of you. Your level of discipline will determine whether you can ignore your biological impulses and act upon the things your mind wants to achieve with your body. The higher your discipline is, the more you can simply make a decision and your body will just execute on it without any resistance. Now, I'm obviously not the epitome of discipline, but there's many things where I could simply make a decision and I will just do it. The problem with most people, however, is that they're not yet at that level, and building yourself up to that point is quite difficult, and I'll explain why. I'll use a video game analogy because I'm still a gamer at heart. So a problem that most people face is that their mind sets tasks and goals to achieve that are way too difficult for the body to execute on. Let's say you are a very undisciplined person. You can't go to bed on time, you can't stop playing video games, and you can't push yourself to go to the gym when you don't feel like it. If you make a decision that from now on, you will always go to bed on time every single night, you will have a perfect diet, and you will go to the gym 7 days a week, that is a decision that is impossible for your body to execute on. Your discipline is like a level 7, and you're trying to slay a level 85 boss. It is literally impossible for you to win. Any gamer or ex-gamer will agree with me here. If you start a video game at level 1, you begin to play and you very quickly progress until level 7 or 8, because that is how video games are designed. You make progress very quickly at first, so you get hooked onto the game. When you get to level 7 or 8, if you try to rush and beat a level 60 boss, you will get one shot. It will just be like bleh and you're dead. It's like you can't win. Even if you dodge every single shot, it would take you like 10,000 hits to kill it, and you would probably die before that anyway. The way you eventually beat that level 60 boss is by first beating the level 10 boss, then the level 15 boss, and you slowly get stronger and stronger until you get to level 58 or 59 yourself, and then you can slay that level 60 boss. When it comes to discipline, most people are like those level 7 gamers that are trying to slay level 60 bosses. It's impossible for them to win. The reason you often set these big goals, start to accomplish them, but then revert back to your old behavior is simply because you haven't built yourself up yet. Discipline is a muscle that you slowly grow over time. This is also why people like David Goggins or Jocko Willink are not as disciplined as people believe them to be. Technically they are, because they've been building it up for decades, but to them they're just doing things that match their current level of discipline. They're like a level 84 gamer slaying a level 80 boss. It's not that difficult to them. But since most people watching them have like a level 7 discipline, they can't understand how these guys are doing all these incredible things every day. But now you might ask, okay, cool. Discipline is something you level up, you can't face battles that are too hard for you, and so on. But how do I actually improve my levels and get to the point where I can also make a decision to do something and actually do it? Well, glad you asked. So how do we actually improve our level of discipline? Let's say you have a level 10 discipline and you want to build a physique you can be proud of. Things like building a good physique, getting a degree, building a business are what I call high discipline activities, meaning in order to complete them, you need to have a high level of discipline, let's say 60. So you'll need to improve your current level of discipline to actually achieve that goal. So again, how do you actually improve your level of discipline so you can eventually reach that level? First, you want to find your current level of discipline. Now this is quite a difficult thing because discipline is such an abstract thing that you can't put into numbers, but there's a method that I really like to use. If you analyze your behavior, you'll easily find that you have peaks and troughs in your productivity. You will always have high points and low points in anything productive you're trying to accomplish. If I take your fitness levels for example, your peak productivity might be you training 5 days a week and taking a daily walk, and your trough and worst point might be you not training and walking at all. The middle point between those two extremes is working out twice a week and taking a smaller daily walk. Another example might be how clean your diet is. At your peak, you might have a 90% clean diet, and at your worst, you might only have a 30% clean diet. The middle ground between those two extremes is a 60% clean diet. What you'll simply need to do is analyze your peaks and troughs in as many things as you can: fitness, work, when you go to bed, how productive you are, and find the middle ground between your peaks and troughs. This represents your current level of discipline and what you're capable of maintaining on a daily basis. The second thing you'll need to do is complete as many of these smaller tasks as possible where you're actually completing something you said you would do, and slowly build your level of discipline over time. Then finally, third, you'll just have to slowly increase how much and at which intensity you do these things over time, so you can slowly make your discipline levels better and better. Now again, keep in mind that the times when you actually improve your level of discipline when you do these behaviors is when you don't feel like doing them. If you feel motivated or hyped to do them, which you probably will be after this video, you're not actually improving. It's the times when you really don't want to do them that you're actually improving, but since these are tasks that match your current level of discipline, you will actually be able to push through and complete them, and therefore actually improve your levels unlike before. Find your peaks and troughs, find the middle ground in between, start doing as many of these things as possible, and slowly increase the intensity and volume over time. That is how you build insane levels of discipline. Now before you leave, I help men build an aesthetic physique, so if you're quite confused about how to get in shape or you need any type of help with building an aesthetic body, I have a personal system called the Aesthetic Physique Method, which should help you with that. There's a link down below. So that's it for this video. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned something. Leave a like, leave a comment. If you want to learn the simple 8-step process to help me quit the majority of addictions in my life, here's the video.